You're listening to the Downshift podcast, where four mates from Melbourne take you trackside for all the action in Formula One, breaking down the races, the drama, and everything in between, all with a little banter and a lot of passion. If you love motorsport and cars, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're always on the grid with us. And if you want to support the team, leave us a 5-star review. So let's get into another action-packed episode. It's lights out, drop the clutch, and let's get racing. Hello and welcome to the Downshift, as we're doing a review of the Canadian Grand Prix and the Le Mans 24-hour, where we actually saw a win by Ferrari, not in the Grand Prix, and we've seen the McLarens come head-to-head, as was inevitable in the race for World Championship. But before we get started, guys, I was really excited and surprised to hear Martin Brundle make a comment in regards to the Downshift. I thought I'd just share this with you as I took a recording on my phone. So here we go.
The Downshift sounds so much better.
Well, we are trending global,
The
so
Downshift sounds
it's inevitable.
so much better.
That was clearly could not have been misinterpreted at all. That is clearly badass.
I'm literally speechless.
That doesn't happen very often.
So obviously the Downshift is now hitting F1 media. So it's great to hear that feedback from some of the professional pundits in the industry. But
You'll be getting cease and desist.
well, as we pull our predictions from a hat, so
If we ever receive a cent of income, we would be
You
professional
laugh
at this,
about
but
that.
we probably won't.
well,
Cheers.
we'll get our first cease and desist letter shortly from Sir Martin Brundle.
We're still buying our own drinks. That's right.
And will be for a long time.
As we get into the weekend that was full of motorsport, as I mentioned, the Le Mans 24-hour featured, and look, probably a little bit frustrating from the perspective of it was really difficult to watch. If you didn't want to subscribe to the Le Mans 24-hour feed, or pay for it in some other way, you had to wait till the end of it to pretty much watch the highlights.
Free
where
load.
we did, yeah, exactly. For the results in the hypercars, we saw the number 83 AF Course Ferrari 499P, who held off the factory Ferraris as well as the other manufacturers in the final stages to win, completing the hat trick for Ferrari, winning for 23, 24 and 25. It was Robert Kubica, Philip Hansen, who won by 14 seconds ahead of the Porsche and the factory Ferrari. In the LMP2, we saw the Inter-Europol competition car that led consistently basically from the first hour of the race, having strong pace to win the class.
And how do you pronounce this first driver, Christian? Have a go.
Jakub
Keep going.
Simichowski,
Don't start the applause just yet.
Tom Dillman,
Oh, that's an easy
and
one.
Nick Yelloy.
Good effort. Very good.
Thanks. And then for the LMGT3, we saw the Porsche 911 GT3R that took a commanding 30-second victory, repeating their 2024 win with strong pace and reliability. They won by 33.259 seconds. And so we saw this with Richard Leitz, Ryan Hadwick, and Ricardo Pera going in front of the Ferrari and then the Corvette. So some interesting racing. There's quite a few spills, not as much as we'd normally see. There was a moment's silence for a rabbit who got in the way.
The BMW, that's right.
Just a typical BMW driver, just cleaned it up on the way through and kept going. So,
It was
So I
interesting.
watched the highlights. So there was quite a few cars that got turned around in that race. And actually interesting watching the hypercars coming through. They were so much faster than the other ones. Watching them come up behind, flash the lights and gone. Like,
I don't think I would have picked Ferrari to win it, though. Like the qualifying was, I think it was a front road lockout by the Cadillacs. They looked pretty good. There was, Porsches up there at the start. The Porsche team seemed to have good pace at the start of the race, but as the track went on and nighttime came, they just seemed to lose a bit of pace, and then the Ferraris were fast. It was a bit of an interesting turnaround after qualifying.
Cadillac did not go well off the line though. They got overtaken in the first lap. Looked like their tyres weren't warm or whatever it was. They were not quick off the line.
Yeah, Porsche got ahead of them straight away. What I found really interesting as well was the Peugeot. A few laps in, it went a little bit wide and literally lost the entire back end.
That was awesome.
Saving it as it hit the wall. That could have been a lot worse than what actually happened coming to the pit.
When that engine cover came off,
full
that
body
was a
change
huge chunk.
But yeah, so fascinating racing, really impressive through the 24 hours with pitch black and as you're saying, Lockie, with those hypercars just shooting through, flashing lights at the other cars. A really good event. Let's hope that sense prevails and someone makes it easier for pundits to be able to watch as they go forward without having to pay a whole bunch of money for it.
Right, us freeloaders have rights. Come on.
Yeah.
Although I did find a couple of free feeds on YouTube, so people were rebroadcasting it on there. So it was not hard to find. But you know, are you going to pay for most motorsport these days in one way or another with subscription? So I guess it's not surprising.
You do.
True. And Happy, you were watching a couple of the other categories as well?
Yes, for us Australians, the Formula One started at 4 a.m. So I decided my sleep was a bit more valuable than a 4 a.m. start this morning. But I got up at 6 and watched the NASCAR race in Mexico. So Shane van Gisbergen, honorary Australian, put his car on pole. And the last few road courses he'd run, he wasn't happy with the car, the way it handled and the setup. And he didn't do as well as he probably could. He didn't get to show his potential. But with this car, even though he had, Mexican belly before the race and was driving the Dalton bus before he got in the car, apparently, had a few tablets and felt a bit better by the end. But he said the car was great and he brained him. He just drove so well. He ended up winning by 18 seconds, beat the whole field. And as the Giz does, did some cracking burnouts at the end of the race and celebrated well. So, yeah, it was a good one to watch, actually. There's plenty of action in NASCAR.
Does he have to do a weigh-in at the end before he then bolts off to the loo again? Or does he go there first and come back? How much would that affect the weight?
Good question. He said he was leaking from both holes at the end, so he obviously struggled a bit.
Thank God this is not a visual one. Okay, excellent.
It's good to watch. I've actually been enjoying. I like the road courses on NASCAR are good to watch because there's plenty of biffo and, guys will hit each other on purpose and retaliate from previous rounds. And, there's always post-track altercations with, other drivers leaning in the window shouting at each other and that sort of thing. So it's good. Bit of excitement. It was good.
It's the Wild
West. Max and Lando would fit right in.
Yeah, well, yeah, perhaps.
So Shane van Gisbergen being an honorary Australian, much like Liam Lawson?
No, we don't want to claim that.
No, we're not going to claim Liam until he gets some better results.
Well,
Giz is very
a
good.
result.
Well, Gisbergen raced in the Australian supercars, so he's close.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that allows us to jump into the F1 with the Canadian Grand Prix. A very clean race for the most part of it. A amazing result for Mercedes with a 1-3 off the starting line. Very well fought for the first few turns for Kimi Antonelli. Dan, we had you put the pressure on Mercedes. You put Kimi and you put George up the top there. So Toto's obviously been listening to the downshift and going, okay, team, pull your fingers out.
Yep, got it back a German team, So no, they did well. I mean, George did well. He said himself he had a cracking pace in that last setup for get P1 in qualifying. Saw the numbers coming down, and it was a good result. It was Max there for a while. The pole position changed quite a few times through that session. Actually, it was a lot going on. But the McLarens just couldn't get quite up the point in where they wanted to be. But even the start was pretty clean. We were all expecting a bit of biffo at the start, but George got away fast and clean, and he was like a car length ahead of Max. And it was not going to be after that. It was pretty clean sailing, I think, for him.
Yeah,
So,
George
Christian, can I just clarify something? So you said, it was a great race. You messaged me this morning to say watch the first 5 laps and then skip to lap 63. So what about the other 58 laps in the middle there that you said was, and I quote, boring, don't bother?
No, it was a good clean race.
Oh, is that what we're calling now? Almost
There's
as good as Monaco racing. Yeah.
There's a bus coming. Quick, throw Christian underneath.
I don't have that sound effect.
Make a list.
What was interesting for Canada is we're expecting a lot of overtaking, and there was some overtaking, but there wasn't as much overtaking as I think we were hoping for. We saw that. Look, Norris actually did some good racing and showed some pace, but then when it got to the tail end, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, wasn't able to pull it off. I think at the start as well, you look at Piastri as the championship leader, he had to mitigate some risk. So, does he fight tooth and nail at the very start with Antonelli for that third place position, or did he let it go and Antonelli got ahead of that? And as we were saying, it was the inevitable coming together of the two McLarens at lap 67 before having the race finish under safety car.
For me, at the start, Oscar just left himself a bit open there, I think, and didn't cover the wide pass by
He was on the
Antonelli.
outside into that first chicane is a really difficult spot because if you get pushed onto the grass, he'll lose 2 or 3 positions. And Antonelli, I think that the Mercedes both had a really good start. So whatever they'd done to heat up their rears and the car had worked well. So it was smart of him just to let Antonelli go. You can't win the race on lap 1, but you can definitely lose it. It was just smart driving like we've seen from Oscar all year. No mistake made. Slotted in 4th. He thought his time will come later.
Well, the commentators were saying too that they said, if he was not as far ahead in the championship, would he actually have given that space back? And they said no. If he wasn't that far ahead and he was fighting to get that number 1 championship point, he probably would have actually tried harder on that lap. But at the minute, he doesn't have to kill himself to do it. So therefore, why would he put his car in a position where he's going to get wrecked on the first lap?
Exactly.
Slot him behind him, do the race, and head out from there.
Yeah,
smart driving.
They wouldn't have been having words to Oscar after the race so much. They would have been busy with someone else. So
it's a tick. Move on.
yeah,
That was just another example where you can just tick off Oscar's maturity, growing maturity as a driver, like not making a mistake, just playing the longer game.
So is this now saying then that maybe the other teams have caught up to McLaren in terms of speed and things like that? Because 3 other teams, or is this just an anomaly of a race for them?
McLaren was strong at this track last year as well. It suits their car. They have good rear traction in that car. It's a track that I probably expected them to go well at, which is why I picked George for 3rd behind the 2 McLarens. I thought the McLarens would be stronger because this was a pretty good track for them last year. But in general, I think it was pretty tight across the whole field. I think at certain tracks, it's been interesting. Yeah, I sort of at the start of the season thought, maybe McLaren's going to be strong at every single track. There's been a couple of rounds where they've been clearly dominant, and other rounds where not so dominant at all. So it's certainly not a car. It's not a car. When Red Bull was dominant, it was dominant. They'd win nearly every race.
And
I don't think McLaren have that car. They have a car that can be really good or close to the pack at other tracks. So it's definitely not a car that suits every track.
they were talking on Saturday, I think it was, that they were expecting it to be a hotter track on Sunday, so that they thought that it wouldn't favour the Mercedes so much, but it didn't seem to be a problem with it.
Yeah, Mercedes has had issue in regards to their tyre temps and being able to manage that, and they managed it really well this weekend. If we go back to qualifying, Russell just had a perfect lap. The way that he drove that qualifying lap to bring it in under 1 minute 11 was exceptional.
It was a good lap. It was also a gamble, though, because they put mediums on for that last lap, whereas McLaren stuck with the softs that they'd been running, all session, and it just turned out that I think the medium worked a bit better and they got a little bit more time out of it.
Well, he was the only driver to go 110.
It was a very good lap. Yeah.
Well,
Mr. Saturday got the job done.
Yeah, and the mediums were the softs from last year. So again, with that change in regards to tyres from Pirelli, the mediums were last year's softs, and the softs were the super softs. So
Yeah.
So
Because
and
when Pirelli says medium, everyone thinks medium, but Pirelli changes the compounds every round. So, like you're saying, KT, this medium is actually quite a soft tyre. Yeah.
And I honestly think that this was a challenging race for McLaren. McLaren were up against it. You're right, Huppy. They can be super fast. They can be mid-pack. It was definitely a mid-pack car. I think what was also interesting was Piastri chose not to take the suspension upgrade, whereas Norris did take the suspension upgrade that they brought to Canada. So we saw a little bit of a difference there. And Norris just wasn't able to bring it in for Q3 and ended up finishing in P7 for the start of the race.
Well, again, he made mistakes, and that's like we can talk about that. When we talk about the incident later in the race, but in general, I think the pressure that Lando's under is he's not handling it well, and he's making mistakes this year.
Well, even listen to his race engineer when he's doing the laps and the qualifying. Go, mate, focus on the braking, focus on telling him the basic points. Basically, you need to reset because you're not in the right zone to be doing these laps and the times that we need you to do.
Yeah, I feel like his engineer's coaching him more than advising him during quali in a race. Whereas with Lando, if you listen to their radio communications, and there's a couple of channels on YouTube which will actually, they've cut up the radio comms for each driver. You can listen to their radio comms for the entire race. Listening to Oscar Piastri and his engineer is they're just methodical, they're calm, they're patient. Oscar gets the right info, he gives the right info back. Whereas Lando's radio this year, if you listen to it and compare the two, it's slightly more urgent sometimes. There might be a bit of coaching from his engineer. It's different. You can sense there's more pressure on Lando in the way he's driving, and maybe that's how he's always been, because I haven't listened to that radio comm stuff much until this year. But Oscar's just so cool, calm, and collected. It's a big difference.
Yeah. The way I read it is between the two of them, I would say pace and grace. Lando has the pace. Oscar has the grace in regards to the way he races.
I would disagree. I think Oscar's got as much pace as Lando in most situations these days. Some situations, I think
final execution.
Lando can get a little bit out of it, maybe, but it's just that racecraft that Oscar has. Yeah, like you say, it's just
If we want to stick to team messages and on the radios and that, I thought after Ferrari's tyre change, there was a great little exchange between Leclerc and the team going,
"Why did you bring me in?
Why did you bring me in? And why have I got these tyres? We're on plan B. No, we're supposed to be on plan C." I thought that was a great little exchange over the radio that they were doing.
There was some great comms. And Alonso's engineer saying, slow down. And Alonso says, I'm not slowing down. I'm racing. I'm not testing.
Yeah, we're not here for testing. We're here for racing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. And poor Alex Albon, his engineer not listening to him, he was complaining as well.
He was getting really, I don't know why you guys don't listen to me. I find it really, really frustrating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So, no, definitely. Yeah. So, well, look, we may as well, while we're on McLaren, let's talk about the end of the race. And as we saw at lap 67, we had just coming into the start of that lap, Norris challenging Piastri for P4, and some good racing through a few of the corners, but then coming onto the straight just after the Wall of Champions, just quite simply right in front of the McLaren pits, Norris deciding to go up the left-hand side where there was no space.
He just ran into the back of it.
Do you think maybe you've been talking
to
Max,
how else to
Max
describe
said, if there's no space, just drive through. You'll be right.
But there's context to this as well, in that we're at the end of the race. Oscar had good pace, had caught up to Antonelli, and was starting to pressure Antonelli. Lando also had good pace and then caught up to the back of Oscar. So at that moment, the team could have stepped in, like other teams would, and say, you know what? Oscar qualified ahead of Lando. He's raced all day ahead of Lando. He's made no mistakes. He's in a good position. Let's hold position. Give him a chance to get past Kimi. But McLaren didn't do that. So all of a sudden, Oscar's in a situation where he's got to try and overtake Kimi, but he also has to be very careful because he knows that Lando's got no instruction to stay behind him. Kimi's holding both of them up. So Lando is going to get DRS and get a run on him as well. So Oscar was put in a very tough situation by the team, I think.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for something to come on the radio about, I think,
Higher rules.
one or two laps. Yeah, something was going to get said, I thought, but it just never came. And but Oscar was, I mean, he was chasing down Antonelli, but he was just that little bit too far out to get the DRS. But then by that time, Lando had DRS on Piastri, and
they both
and it was making it hard.
had DRS in the end. So this is the thing: so Oscar did have DRS, Lando then had DRS, and they're both doing that. And that's why they were able to keep the pace on each other.
You would see that sort of rubber banding as well, because Oscar would save up some battery. He'd have 1 or 2 laps to attack Kimi and try and get close, and then he'd have to build up his battery charge again. So if that happened, maybe he got close to Kimi, didn't quite get there, had to recharge the battery a bit, then Lando's caught up to him, and that's put them both in that situation where they both probably had very similar pace. It might have looked like Lando was quicker, but I don't think he necessarily was, because Oscar was in the air of Kimi behind him. So Oscar's going to struggle to make up the same pace that Lando's got.
And Dan, you don't have to worry, because there will be instructions next weekend as to who has to sit behind who from McLaren. So that'll be okay for next weekend.
Well,
are you suggesting that Lando will be in the naughty corner?
I don't think he'll be in the front row of the class.
It'll be interesting to see if there's questions asked of McLaren and Zach in particular about team orders.
Be a bit clearer.
What happens in this situation? I mean, and Lando's mental state at the moment can't be great. Yeah, he's not having the best season. He's behind in points. He made mistakes in qualifying. He made a big mistake in the race. Well, that was a rookie error from a guy that is touted as one of the best in the field. It only comes from pressure. So he's got to be careful. He might be a lot more careful around Oscar in future. Like, they raced really cleanly up until then. Lando chucked it down the inside. Oscar let him through, did the over under, got through the chicane. Was defending to the inside on the left into turn 1, which is probably what you want to do. Or he decided that was the best option. So it was 100% Lando's fault.
Well, that was actually the racing line going through there. But coming from that, do you reckon, I reckon who's the happiest guy out of all this? It'll be Max Verstappen, because now no one's asking him about his racing point left on his license. They're all focused on McLaren, and the pressure's off because he was sick of answering questions on that before the race. And I reckon he's gone, I'm right for the next week. This is all focused on McLaren.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. But I guarantee, even if Oscar doesn't say much, Mark Webber will be on the phone going, what are you monkeys doing? Like, this is just getting ridiculous. Like, you cannot do this sort of thing to my driver who is leading the world championship for you.
Yeah, nobody was talking about Max's points since George did it when he was talking about his pole position.
That was my favourite comment.
And that was
gold.
Nice poignant pause that he made after he made a comment about points on licenses.
Look, it was perfectly set up for us that, from qualifying, we had a Russell, Verstappen, P1, P2. We were just waiting for it to go a gutser into turn 1. And to your point is that this is where George's comment in regards to it saying, yeah, I've got a few more points to play with, so I'm good. Yeah, good on him.
But George's reaction time was 0.1 better than Verstappen's, and he just got off that line so cleanly. It didn't actually
fast.
Had a great start. Yep.
Half a car length in front instantly.
Absolutely hooked up. Yeah, it was really good.
Yep.
So before we wrap up on McLaren, the question I have for the team here is that we've heard both Zach and Andrea talking about the fact that, look, we know that there's going to be at some point where the car's going to come together. The team is 175 points ahead in the Constructors' Championship. This is where the dollars are. It's not in the World Championship
and that is
standings.
Locked up. No one's going to overtake him on that.
Yeah. So the question...
Put the miles on it. Just call it Cam Waters.
Just say, how's Cam Waters going? No?
Shush. No, we're talking about Formula One. Keep going.
All right.
So
Sorry,
the question for the team is this the crash that Oscar and Lando had to have?
I don't think Oscar will be disappointed at all. I mean, he was lucky to get away with it. Like, there was a lot of damage, obviously, to the front of Lando's car. But I think from Oscar's point of view, I think it's just another negative, and it's another, he's just climbed one rung higher in everyone's thoughts and expectations. He's come out with his head held high from this whole situation. It's Lando that stuffed up. It's Lando that caused the accident. Lando will get probably a word, spoken to him about this. So in a way, if good outcome, like that they had some sort of incident, it might force a change, like you're suggesting. But yeah, it's only positive for Oscar, I think.
Well, you say, Nate, that he's living rent free,
In Lando's head.
I reckon he's just added another bedroom to that now, and just put an extension on it. And he's now got an extra room to live rent free as well.
He's going to shift his whole
He's
family
hooked up
in.
the cable.
Yeah.
He's settling in.
Mate. Yeah.
So I mean, Lando has to sort himself out like that. He can't keep continuing like that. And look, it'll be interesting to see if McLaren does change their attitude a little bit, but it's still, we're only a third of the way through the season, basically. We've got a couple rounds before the halfway point. Maybe if Oscar, he's 22 points ahead now in the championship, which is not quite a race win. The race win's 25. If he could extend that lead to 30, 35 points by the end of Silverstone, that's, over a race win ahead. Maybe then it would be time for McLaren to start, implementing a few things to protect the championship. I don't think anything will happen before Silverstone. That's my gut feel anyway.
And look, in regards to Lando, this is where he's also got to realise that this was just stupid. Not only was it a stupid move, and as Lockie was saying, it wasn't even a move because there was no space on the left-hand side. He's also got to consider that he could have taken out his teammate, and both of them had the chance to take Antonelli. We still had a number of laps to go. So he's initiated the safety car. So he's also taken away the opportunity for Oscar to take Kimi in the final laps as well.
Or either of them, if they had swap positions, for example. Yeah. They could have maybe both got past him. That's it. You can't afford to throw away a potential result like that.
We'll never know.
And to your point, Huppy, it was a rookie error. So, he is driving like a rookie in that regards. He's got to... I'm gonna call it, unless he gets some serious help in regards to his mental focus and being able to shift his mental state. I'm going to say not a world champion. I don't see Lando actually being able to be a world champion this year or in a year going forward.
Well, if you think he needs it, Dan and I can probably take him to the pub and have a whiskey or a bourbon with him. Put our arm around him, just let him, have a chat if he needs to. So we'll put it out there. If he wants to catch up, he can come out and we'll have a chat with him.
If he's in the area, we'll travel a bit.
Yeah. If he wants to send the jet, we'll jump on the jet and go over as well. We're okay with that.
Yeah, we're all good.
Yes, you're right, KT. He needs to somehow clear all this stuff out of his head and just get back to basics, drive as fast as he can, as clean as he can, and try and get ahead of Oscar if he can. But I really think Oscar's got his measure at the moment.
It felt a bit like that last little few laps. There was a bit of Lando's ego taking hold. Sort of, I've got to get in front. I've got to be the lead car, and then it kind of came unstuck.
It certainly didn't work.
All right, so I think we've covered off McLaren there. We get back on track in regards to the order of things that we wanted to talk about. I was going to put it out there. Do we want to talk about commentary?
I like Nico Rosberg. Nico.
He calls it, he sees it.
He's a very straight shooter. He calls it as he sees it. And he's very insightful because he's obviously still very well connected to people in the paddock, whether they're engineers or team owners. And he comes out with these little bits of information about what they've done to the car and what their goals are, or, who's looking at making a move and that sort of thing. So he knows a lot. He's great to have, and he's got a good insight into, even his comments about Lando and Oscar in their battle at the moment, what they're going through, Hamilton and his struggles with that Ferrari. he's just got great insight because he's been there so recently and done it.
All right, so we saw Canada being the home race for Lance Stroll. There was question marks as to whether or not Lance was going to be driving.
Was he actually there, or must have missed him?
He actually got 17th position.
Wow. And how many DNFs were there?
3.
Oh, right. Okay. Just checking.
Was he last? He did park for a while and pat a groundhog, and then he took off again. But I think he put the groundhog in the way of Lewis's car for some reason. So I don't know why.
Well, to be fair, last week we weren't even expecting him to drive. We were worried about who was going to take his spot.
Yeah, we did half an episode on that last week, if I remember correctly.
We probably spent too long talking about Lance's right wrist.
But look, I think, in all honesty, this is where, when is Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll actually going to face reality and make a decision to put the team, the fans, and the heritage of Aston Martin ahead of the indulgence of the son of a billionaire?
Once Lawrence gets out of the business and sells the company.
Yeah, it's just
that's
ridiculous.
Not going to happen. Maybe they need to start a junior team and Stroll can be part of the junior team, like the Racing Bulls.
I mean, look, Alonso finished 7th in that race. You know, there was a big difference. You know, he's just a way more consistent driver, and ideally that's what you want. Like most teams will aim to have a really good number one driver, the best they can get, and someone else who's going to help them, back them up, or be a junior that can develop. And Lance has been consistent, but he's not going. Doesn't look like he's going to develop into a Fernando Alonso, and he's just too far away in some of these races to help Fernando out.
I did see a meme or a picture of Stroll, sitting at the interviewing table or couch or whatever it was, and the comment was that considering it's his home race, he's not looking very enthusiastic to be here, and it kind of feels a bit like that too in his driving and everything else. It's like, mate, you're driving Formula One. Like, I know you have some frustrations with your driving and your performance and the team and everything else, but you're still at the pointy end of things. You reckon it'd be something to smile about.
He's no Dan Ricciardo as a face for Formula One, is he? He doesn't have that.
What? Like,
no.
Yeah.
Smile.
Not everyone is, but yeah.
But you could still act happy at your home Grand Prix.
Look,
Oscar's pretty straight and level-headed. Like, he's probably not Mr. Personality. I mean, but he's still, looks like he wants to be there and he's enjoying it.
And I think that's the point, Dan, is you're saying he wants to be there. Now, Lance, he's an okay driver. At times he can be a good driver. He's never going to be a great driver. If he wants to drive, and, obviously Dad's quite happy to pay for him to drive in the highest level of racing, do it in one of the other series. Do it in the GT3s where you've got the heart of racing for Aston Martin. Do it in the hypercars where you've got the Valkyrie, which, finished sort of midfield, one of them. Go and race in those series, but leave the Formula One for the best of the best.
I don't think people drive Formula One because of the money that they get paid to be there. I think they drive it because they enjoy it. Like, and it's the pinnacle of the sport. Like, if Lance has got, I mean, I'm sure he doesn't really care about the money and he probably doesn't need it. But, like, why don't you just go and do something you enjoy? Whether it is one of those other categories or something.
He must enjoy it, and he's got an opportunity to compete at the highest level, and he's doing a pretty good job. Like, he's an excellent driver. Like, obviously, to be able to compete at that level and get points. We're not saying he's a Gumby driver. Like, he did very, very well in junior series.
Well, he's got the right colour for Gumby.
What we're saying is,
but he's an excellent driver now, finishing in 17th position.
No, at this level in a Formula One team, if he was a Red Bull Junior or a Mercedes driver or something like that, he would not have lasted this long in the team. So I completely get what you're saying, but you can't write him off as an average driver. He'd probably be an excellent driver in any other series that you mentioned, but not quite making it in Formula One by the looks of it.
And that's my point. He's a good driver. He's just not a great driver in Formula One. So if he loves driving, he'll do very well in other series.
So then are we going to wait and hold judgment until he gets the new package next year where it's a complete level playing field? Everyone starts out fresh. And if he can't prove it, then he can't prove it at all.
Well, he's been around long enough. But I really want to see what Aston's going to do with their driver lineup next year.
I'm still sticking to my guns that Lance Stroll will not be driving next year.
Having seen the last couple of races, and I know we joke about sort of, laps 1 to 5 and 6 are really interesting, and laps 63 to 70 or the end
We weren't
are
joking.
interesting, and the whole middle bit's boring. I'm actually kind of really sort of hoping that the next season comes along a bit quicker. Like that's going to be early next year. I think it's going to be really interesting again. I mean, they lapped up to position 9. Like, half the field's not even close at the moment. I mean, I know we talked before that they are close and they look close, but I mean, they're close when there's a safety car.
But it will be worse next year.
Beyond that,
we're at the end of a regulation period now where all the teams are supposed to be quite close in performance.
That's working out well.
Next year, Dan, will probably be worse. There will be teams that will be way quicker than the slowest team, whereas at the moment in qualifying, they're all within about a second and a half, the whole field. Next year, it could be two seconds difference. Like
you've got a new entrance. You got Cadillac coming in. You got Audi starting up as well. So it's
all of those
changes. More stacks.
All of those changes will be great. Like I'm hanging out to see new team, new drivers, new cars. New theories on downforce and direction. Yeah, but the racing itself, I have no idea what it's going to be like. But it probably won't be. The field will not be as close as it is now.
Yeah, you'll have a lot more DNFs. You'll have a lot more mechanical issues. I mean, you look at Mercedes as the PU provider with the power unit failures that we've had. We're going to have a lot more of that in 2026.
Yeah. Testing in Barcelona will be fascinating to watch. It will be good.
Just think, Dan, if we get a couple of extra drivers, Liam Lawson can add them to the hit list and see if he can hit some more.
Yeah.
Mind you, Liam Lawson did not hit many people in this race, and that's because, he wasn't racing.
Well, he hasn't got his fresh Liam Lawson bingo card.
Well, he did 53 laps. He did most of it. But they did retire him to look after the power unit, apparently.
So speaking of another driver who kept their nose very clean this weekend, Max Verstappen.
Fast.
That was all okay.
Well, what more can you say? He wasn't involved in controversy. He made the most out of his car, obviously more than Yuki's done, and maximised his points. Like, he was pretty close to George at the end.
He did protest George at the end to see if he could snag number 1, but
Yeah, but Red Bull are always going to do that, and Mercedes are going to do the same back to Red Bull. So you expect it, but no, Max did very well.
Well, credit where credit's due. George used Max's brake test.
Yep. Apparently Max doesn't like his own brake test, by the way.
It wasn't an original idea, no.
But he was so close. There was no reason for him to be so close at that point of the safety car. I didn't understand that.
No.
Look, Max did a good race, clean race, clinical, did what he needed to do, but...
And he's only 21 points behind Lando now in the championship. So,
correct.
He's closed that gap. He's a good, 40 points behind Oscar. So it's a fair gap. But
his car seemed better on the weekend too. He didn't have as many complaints about the car from what he had previously.
No, I think their car operated
hards
quite well there. But I think going into next round in Austria, which we can talk about soon, I think their car will be pretty good there as well.
Yep. What's interesting as well is George is now only 19 points behind Max. So it's going to make things very interesting. One, if Max does get a race disqualification, if he loses one more point, we're going to see that George can, Mr. Consistency, overtake Max there.
Yep.
And what I also found really interesting from Max was with his race engineer, GP, he was actually keeping him very calm through the race. So if you're listening to the radio chatter between GP and Max, he was actually similar to, as we're talking about with Lando, coaching him through the race, reminding him just to stay calm, don't get activated by what was going on around him. Even when George did the braking, he did tell him to calm down.
Yeah.
So, Nate, if we go back to what you're talking about in NASCAR, does that mean that George can store up that the hit and then bring it back out later in the season and take out Verstappen later on? Is that something that we can look forward to?
If it was NASCAR, that would 100% happen. 100%.
So it's not going to happen in Formula One, though?
No, probably not.
That's a little bit disappointing. Okay.
I was going to use the same term, KT. Mr. Consistency came to mind, and it's certainly helping Mercedes. They're second in the Constructors' Championship. Only 16 points ahead of Ferrari, but
correct.
George has just been Toto's in love with Kimi. We know that there's something weird going on there, but he's very happy that George has been able to step up and be that sort of consistent number one driver in the team, and he's maximising points in pretty much every race. So he's doing a very good job.
He better show George love. He's got 3 times the points that Kimi has. So
This
Well,
is George's
he's
time.
a rookie. He's a rookie. He's learning.
That opens up the comment made in regards to that George does not have a contract for next year, and they put Toto on the spot, both Nico, before the race, after Mr. Saturday, as George has been known, got P1, and then after the win, Simon Lazenbury asked the same question. So does this give you reason to sign George's contract now?
Cadillac.
I think George is leveraging something for as much cash as he can get out of Mercedes. He's the number one driver now, and he's performing well. Why not ask for Lewis Hamilton levels of money?
And he's taking Kimi under his wing. I mean, I thought it was fantastic where you look at when he won the race. He said, "Great job, team." But then he said, "Oh, how awesome for Kimi as well." It was all of a sudden on to Kimi. He went up and he gave Kimi a hug and patted him on the head. He's showing that support. And I think to your point, Happy, is that I see the Toto-Kimi relationship very similar to the Zach-Lando relationship. Brought him up from the junior classes, put their arm around them and really have been that mentor and moulding that driver to be a world champion.
And George knows what it's like to be driving under or with a world championship driver, like a number one driver. Like that was a clear, when Lewis was there, it was clear what the order was. So he knows how it is on the other side.
Yeah.
And to be fair, is it really that hard for George to pat Kimi on the head? Like,
No. I think it's hard for anyone to pat Kimi on the head.
They're both fairly tall. Yuki for sure.
No. Any other races we wanted to talk about, team, before we move on to our predictions?
I think we can move right past them.
No, let's go back there.
I think we need to change.
Although we
All right,
didn't talk about
we need to
Albon and
change
his
strategy.
struggles, but
Let's rip the
Let's go
Band-Aid
over
off, KT. Come on.
let's see how we went.
So, look, we all had a laugh as Schwags brought out the hat of destiny to decide on the race winners. It was last week that we actually were hopeful that Schwags would hit double points. And he has.
Yay.
Hey, there you go. I didn't think I would either.
Where's the applause button? Surely you've got a
No,
button to make a crowd applause and clap.
Here we go.
Ready?
Well done, Dan.
I love that spontaneous applause. Beautiful.
Thank you to our live audience for coming into
Yes,
the studio. We
Jesus.
appreciate it. Yeah.
It's great to have a crowd tonight.
So for the race, we had George Russell, who took pole position, then George, who won the race, followed by Max, and then Kimi in third. Lockie, Happy,
I
myself,
get 7 or 8 points for that. Like, how many did I score out of this weekend?
a big fat 0 for all three of us.
Oh,
Unfortunately, Schwags, you didn't get pole with Kimi, mind you. He did put in a damn good effort to try and get that for you, but you did get 3 points for George taking first place, which puts you up to 12 points.
hey,
Well done,
double
Dan.
figures.
Good
job.
There you go.
So
Here I come.
biggest.
Here I come.
Yeah.
So here's the comeback from fourth. So Dan, you're in fourth with 12, closely following myself in 22, with Lockie at 25, and Happy just taking out the lead at the moment with 26 points. So with that,
Marathon. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
That was pretty.
that ends our review of the Canadian Grand Prix. It is a non-race weekend this weekend, so we won't be having an episode on Thursday. This episode will launch on Wednesday. Next week, we will then have the preview of the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring, so make sure you tune in for that. Be sure to like and subscribe so you know when each of our episodes drop, and we will see you on the next lap. And that's the checkered flag for this episode of The Downshift. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us in the paddock. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a lap. And hey, if we've earned it, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us climb the grid and reach more motorsport fans. Tune in next time as we keep pushing flat out to bring you fresh, current, and entertaining content. Until next time, keep it fast, keep it fun, and we'll catch you on the next lap.